Hey, what is going on, guys? It's the SS Ultimate Goku back with another video, and today we're going to be talking about why Cell is the most popular Dragon Ball Z villain character in the West. So Cell is iconic. He is the villain that we feared. He was the villain that people in the West look to as this guy is the best villain Dragon Ball Z has ever come up with. Even when Boo came around, people were still cramming at the bit for Cell to come back because a lot of people preferred Cell as a villain over Boo, over Frieza here in the West. If you go to popular polls, and popular people and ask people who was the best villain in Dragon Ball Z, most people are going to probably say Cell here in the West. However, believe it or not, this is not something that was actually a thing in Japan. In Japan, well, in the West, in the United States, Dragon Ball Z, typically, obviously popular just as much as in Japan. However, there's always going to be differences in terms of what people like and what people don't like from Japan and the United States. And, well, this is one of them. So, obviously, as a perfect example, Cowboy Bebop, not popular in Japan, but highly popular here in the West. As a matter of fact, they have said that the voice cast in the English dub was also better, which is a rarity for anybody to actually agree to that. From even strict sub-fans. But that being said, aside, when it comes to Dragon Ball Z, universally in Japan, obviously Dragon Ball Z is hugely popular, but it's also highly popular here in the West, just as much. So, with this, just because the Dragon Ball Z is popular in both countries does not mean the characters itself are going to be received popular the same way. And this is many cases when it comes to the villains. Typically, in Japan, the popular villain is Frieza. And their least popular favorite character is Cell. However, when you come here to the West, Perfect Cell gets the nod at being the most popular villain. Over Frieza, and as a lot of people want to see Cell return into a movie like Frieza, as well as many others. Obviously, we got the return of Broly, but Broly technically was non-canon. Now he is canon, but you get the point. But a lot of people want to see Cell come back because a lot of people in the West love Cell. Fortunately, people in Japan don't see it the same way, so it probably won't happen, unfortunately. Though I would love to see the return of Cell, by the way, so I hope I am wrong, but nonetheless, what made Cell so popular here in the West compared to Japan? What made us like him as a villain over, or love to hate him as a villain over Frieza and the many other villains like Majin Buu and many others villains? What made Cell the villain? Well, I'm going to give you guys the main reasons why Cell was the best villain and is, in my opinion, the best villain, and, well, many others, is the best villain in Dragon Ball Z. So when you look to why Cell was someone that people really, really loved to hate, in terms of being a villain, you have to look at the origins of why Cell was made to begin with. So, according to interviews as well as different stuff that I believe had even been reported by Geekdom, so hopefully I'm not misquoting some stuff, but I'm pretty sure Geekdom has even covered this as well, is that the origins of Cell as well as the androids as well as everything in itself was created due to the fact that they kind of wanted to change things up. They wanted to kind of go in a different approach, because the original approach was to just have, for example, the Cooler's Revenge movie, which was non-canon. That was actually supposed to be an actual arc. That was basically supposed to be following the events of Frieza's defeat to Goku. Instead, they got rid of this, and they decided to do Frieza turn into a metal android, cyborg. You get the point of where they were going with this. And introduce King Cole, his father, and then they easily get defeated by Future Trunks, as we all know. However, this wasn't the original plan. The original plan was for Cooler, the brother, who then gets his own movie instead, was actually supposed to be an entire arc. That whole, like, quick 60-minute, I think, movie was supposed to be a simple arc. You know, it was supposed to be a long, drawn-out arc, with the brother trying to get revenge for Frieza's defeat against Goku. Of course, this doesn't happen, as we all know. This never does happen, because instead we get the androids. The reason why the androids were created was due to the fact that Akira Toriyama basically wanted to change things up. And because he changed things up, this basically got rid of Cooler as a character in an arc. And instead, he then was labeled to be a non-canon villain movie instead. As well as it being so successful, it got even a sequel even after that. But nonetheless, he decided to do an android arc instead. Artificial humans, or cyborgs, or whatever you want to call them. Personally, I'm just going to call them androids, because that's how they call them in the dub, even though it doesn't obviously realistically make sense. But nonetheless, we're just going to call them that. Anyways, so the androids basically, from based on the times and the dates of when this was originally written by Akira Toriyama, because this was written around the early 90s, which was around the time a certain movie was coming out. And that movie was the sequel to the great early 80s film, The Terminator. Terminator 2 Judgment Day came out in 1992, which shortly after Akira Toriyama decided to write an android arc, conveniently very similar elements to the Terminator. As a matter of fact, they did a lot of the stuff that Terminator was doing at the time in writing in this arc. So it stands to believe that Akira Toriyama was a fan of the Terminator film, because that's kind of a lot of stuff that was going on in this arc were kind of inspirations to what T2 was doing. You know, a futuristic, person coming back in time to kind of prevent Goku from dying of a heart attack. Very, very oministic of the whole plot of T2, where Terminator comes back to basically help John Connor from being killed. Obviously, there are some differences, but the same idea is out there. You know what I'm saying? They're doing a very similar idea. And so, because of this arc being kind of based off of what was going on with T2 and having a lot of Terminator 2 elements to it, which was a highly popular film and made a lot of box office money, and still to this day has been talked about as one of the greatest films, if not the greatest films of all time. Definitely the greatest sequel of all time. And a lot of people loved that film. And Cell and the androids were basically inspired off of this. So this gave a Western feel. Whether or not this was Akira Toriyama's intention, since this, when he wrote this in the manga, obviously it was well before it even aired in the West. But you get the point. Akira Toriyama indirectly wrote something that actually the West were overall going to appeal to, because this was a Western element to it. this is something that the United States was interested in, because this is something that most general public people in the West were used to seeing, and this is stuff that they liked. So this is another reason why, this is one of the main reasons why I think Cell is highly popular here in the West. Also, another thing to consider here is Cell is the first person that basically can do everything that the heroes can do. He can do the Kamehameha, he can do the Gallic Gun, he can do the Final Flash, he can do any attack that the heroes can do, which is another thing that I think gave Cell an unpredictable, feel to him, that he can basically do whatever everyone else can do. He can regenerate. He can, like Piccolo, he can do the Kamehameha. He can do anything that they can do. Which also benefits Cell. Again, a futuristic time thing, like we explained earlier. Futuristic, him coming back from an alternate reality, just like Trunks coming back from an alternate reality, where Cell did Trunks did beat the androids but couldn't beat Cell, and that's how he came back to the present day. And then of course Trunks, future Trunks, the one that we know, came back came back not being able to defeat the androids, and hasn't even been introduced to the Cell of his timeline to warn Goku. So again, this had a lot of Terminator feel to it, which Terminator was highly popular in the West. So obviously, generally, this arc overall was beneficial to the West more than it was to someone in Japan. Not saying that people in Japan don't like the Terminator overall, because obviously Akira Toriyama liked it, because that's why he wrote the arc around this way to begin with. But it gets you to the point that probably most people in Japan aren't used to that type of dynamic, which the West are. So when this arc aired, when it did, more people were really intrigued by it. They were interested in it because it was something that they were used to. It was something they were familiarized with, which is why they could get around someone like Cell. Also, another big reason why Cell became more popular than Frieza and Boo and everyone else in terms of villains is because of this. Yes, the iconic Perfect Cell theme song. I hope you guys heard that, but the iconic Perfect Cell theme song, which obviously done by the Falconer score, which was something that to this day gets remix after remix after different remixes from other people. Team 4-Star made a version of it, and I don't even think they used that much of the Falconer score, but they did for Cell. You have different remixes for this song. This was an iconic song, probably the most popular Falconer score theme song. I mean, obviously there were a lot of great ones. It would be hard to pick the best ones, but a lot of people universally have agreed that this was the best Falconer score song, the Cell Perfect song, and because of its iconicness, because when you know that Cell is coming, you hear that beat. It's right up there with Darth Vader in terms of it is like this villainous song where it's just like you automatically know who he is when that song plays. And that is another thing that added to the element of Perfect Cell, is you knew who was coming when that song played. When that song played, you knew who it was. You knew that Cell was coming and he was going to take you down. That was what that song represented. It was just very reminiscent of Darth Vader's theme song, which is a very iconic classic song. And that is the same thing with Cell. His song was just amazing. And again, obviously we fans in the United States, as well as a lot of people that watch the English dub of Dragon Ball Z, love the Falconer score. It's, in my opinion, the best score in anime. I've seen a lot of great Japanese scores. Obviously not when it comes to Dragon Ball Z, because I don't really like the Dragon Ball Z score for the Japanese side of it. As we all know, I'm not a fan of that score. But with the Falconer score always had these beats and these theme songs, and the Cell one just completely blew everyone away every time you heard that song. That was an iconic song. And another reason of Layer to just add more to why Cell himself as a villain character was so popular here in the West compared to somewhere in Japan. Because people in Japan obviously didn't hear that theme song. But again, the barrier culture is different there compared to here. And so, yeah, Cell definitely, to me, is still the best villain. I wish he would return because, again, Cell is iconic. He's got, this whole, intimidation factor to him that, the heroes are so intimidated by because he knows everything that they're doing. Frieza didn't have that. And that's another reason why I think there was so much of a connection with Cell compared to Frieza or even Majin Buu, who came after him. Buu was viewed as a goofball until you kind of get to Kid Buu, but even after that, they probably didn't feel as much empathy to people in the West compared to Cell, who was always serious, wanting to have that perfect form. And so, yeah, this is why Cell is iconic. Still to this day, probably the most iconic villain in Dragon Ball Z to people here in the West compared to someone in Japan. And yeah, let me know what you guys think. Do you guys agree? Do you guys disagree? What other things do you think make Cell the best villain in Dragon Ball Z? Let me know what you guys think. Comment, rate, if you like this video, my videos, please subscribe. Discord link in the description, as well as my Patreon if you want to support me. That's all I gotta say. I am the SS Ultimate Goku. I'm out of here. Peace! Because it's all about perfection.